want to be the best possible leader you can be? Do you want to be the leader your team truly deserves? Then you are in the right place. In this podcast, we share deeply personal stories of how successful leaders are powered by their purpose and anchored in their authenticity, how they connect who they are to how they lead and translate their purpose into everyday actions in good times and bad, at crossroads and crises, how they challenge status quo and existing paradigms and do different things differently. Mindful leadership is the greatest unlock for the future of work. Join us in reimagining the leadership of the future with me, your host, Shahana Banerjee, CEO of Just Human, on a mission to humanize the future of work. In this episode, we dig into the power of coaching with my fellow coach and business executive, Sohee Jun. She is the author of the best-selling books Mommytracked and Aligned Mindset and is on a mission to empower women leaders at all levels for authentic success. Welcome, Sohee. So excited to have you on our podcast today.
Thank you so much, Shahana. I have been looking forward to this conversation.
Wonderful. You've helped so many women through your work. So, this is truly special. I'm really thrilled for our listeners to get to know you better today.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it.
Let's dive right in. Tell us a little bit about your story and the people, the experiences, and influences that have shaped you into who you are today.
I am an immigrant from South Korea. I came to the States at 6, and I share that because it's very formative to my experience early on, which is one in which I tried to adapt, one in which I had to remain flexible, one in which I now say made me super resilient, which are all traits that I call my superpowers now in the work that I do with the women and the leaders that I coach. So, a very dynamic growing up. We moved a lot, which again added to being dropped into a context, trying to figure it out. I think that's what makes up my childhood, trying to figure it out and trying to adapt, which on this side of adulthood has really served me well.
Hmm. How interesting. And so, when you look back at those experiences, could you maybe think of a story when you were dropped into a context and you had to really figure it out, and what helped you do that?
One experience I recall, I was fresh from South Korea, and imagine a 6-year-old. At that time, like any 6-year-old, you just want to make friends. You want to make
Right.
friends and be liked. And that was my goal. And it's like, what is this English thing? I have to learn another call. And the food was different. And at the time, I would say it was oddly, it was odd for me. And on layering on top of that was the desire to understand the norms of school. So I remember one day they had us line up. It must have been like kindergarten or first grade. And, I was being so teased. I was teased for not knowing the language, and they made fun of me. And they're like, all you know is the word. What do you know how to say? And I said, no. And they're like, that's all you know how to say. So it's just like this thing that was
Right.
formative for me that called out my differentness.
Yeah.
And I recall a teacher at that time really helping me learn the language that helped me acculturate and assimilate faster than I think I
Mm,
would have without his help. So it was
mm,
really pivotal in my early years to know the language and be able to speak. But
yeah.
throughout my life, I think people have supported me in those ways when you're like, I need somebody to help me.
Yeah. Looking back, if you had to label that emotion that you felt when this teacher spent their time that they didn't have to, right, with you, trying to help you learn the language, what would that feeling be?
One of relief.
Huh.
Yeah, I think when I go back, the prevailing feeling is confusion, is also of shame
Hmm.
because I want to know, I want to fit in, and I felt ashamed for not knowing.
Wow.
And I think that's a tie through for many of the things in my early career as well, just not knowing politics and how to navigate those things.
Yeah.
Um, and when he leaned in to help me, it was relief. It was, okay, somebody is here. And it's depressurizing
Yeah.
that you have support from somebody
Yeah.
else and you don't have to go at it alone.
Yeah. And that you matter.
Yeah, and that I
It-
matter and that I'm seen by someone. Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, that's an amazing story. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, you're welcome.
And that was the beginning of so many achievements in your life and career. Your career has taken you through organizations like NASA and Bank of America and Warner Media. And then, of course, you decided to give it all up and strike out on your own. The journey from, being a successful business executive to entrepreneur. Oh my God, it's not easy. I certainly relate to that a lot. So, could you share a little bit about that journey and what drove you to make that decision?
It wasn't one big push that pushed me out to entrepreneurship. It was a number of things.
Mm,
One, my family has a background of entrepreneurs. So that's somewhere in the recesses of my DNA of
mm.
entrepreneurship. And one of my biggest values is freedom, is the
Yeah,
freedom to do and be and really, carve out work that feels important to me. So all that plays into the decision. The biggest forcing function, though, was having kids. So having, as you know, I have three amazing humans. They're all unique and distinct. And the first one I had really had me lean into that transition in a very big way, meaning I tried it all out. I'm going to be a stay-at-home mom, so I stayed home for a little bit. I wanted to see if working part-time worked, if I could do job share. I wanted to do the hack of doing this mom and child thing right, for what I thought was right then. And it was through those series of experiences, Shauna, that made me realize, look, I ultimately want to lean into carving out my own business so that I can be there for my kids in a meaningful way. But also, I have to share this. It was also to find a solution to the immense amount of energy I was putting into no longer doing the work in my corporate life, but like so much time in politics, navigating
yes.
politics, managing up, and all of those
Yeah,
things are still true today in the work world, right? We have to manage
true.
up. If we are lucky and have the honor of leading teams, we spend immense amount of energy there.
Yeah,
I wanted to ground myself in doing the work, get myself out of playing the political game that for me didn't feel fulfilling,
yeah,
and really be there for my kids in a meaningful way. So all of those variables made me take the jump of, I'm gonna be honest and say, I stayed up at night sweating bullets of
yeah,
who leaves a good team, who leaves the corner office, a
yeah.
good title, a place where I'm respected, and walks away from that to start something that felt so risky.
Your life's work, Sohee, seems to be about helping women to be their best selves and succeed. From your books, Mommytracked and Aligned Mindset, to your executive coaching focused on high performing female leaders, it seems like it fuels you, right? It's like closely connected to your purpose. So tell us a little bit about why it is so important for you to make the road a bit easier for other women.
Oh gosh, it is my purpose. Why I do the work that I do is goes back to, my lived experience. I coach from lived experience. I know intimately the challenges of wanting to anchor into our true leadership. What does that look like? How do I advocate for myself? How do I stop shaming myself from wanting what I want? How
Hmm.
do I take action on the things that matter to me, that
Right.
I matter to others? And why not me? Right? My story and my life has been also about why not me? My life's mission through what I do in coaching is to help women find themselves. I want to help lessen the struggles that I felt intimately, both in corporate America, as an entrepreneur, as a leader, as a boss, as a mom, all of the things, all the hats that we wear. If I can help support a woman to lean into her core confidence and find who she is, oh, there's nothing better than that for me.
Awesome, awesome. You've been among surely the first, the few, the only, just like me, in way too many spaces that
Yeah.
perhaps weren't ready for you. Could you
Mhm.
share a little bit of what that experience was like? And is there a story about that that you want to share? Something you faced and how you overcame it?
Yeah, so two things come to mind. I remember early on, I've had the honor, as I said, of leading teams, but early on, I think that people saw something in me that I hadn't seen in myself. This was with Jet Propulsion Lab, which is the NASA center.
Mhm.
And I remember early on telling my managers at the time, I want to do a rotation through all of the different HR functions, but mostly I'm interested in training. With having said that, I think I had a really great leader who saw in me something that I didn't see in myself. And she said, okay, we're going to have you put together a training and you're going to facilitate. And I was just like so new to the field. I was like, what are you talking about? What am I doing? So as I am, I'm very scrappy. I kind of just put things together as I know. I ask people, I do the task, and here comes the day that I am leading that training. Shahana, I'm not joking when I say that I stepped into a room full of very seasoned leaders who 95% of them did not look like me. And I remember distinctly feeling like they were looking at me as though, one, what is she doing, a 20-something-year-old teaching us about leadership?
Right.
Secondly, it was my moment to really lean into like I better build my confidence and show up right now, right? I had done
Mhm.
the work beforehand. I know the material. Let me stand in my confidence.
Mm.
And so that was a really defining moment for me where I'm like, oh wow,
So what happened?
probably better than I thought it went in my own mind. So one of the
Okay.
things that I know a lot of high achieving women do is they get very critical. And this is a lot of the work that I do with women around inner critic. Oh,
Hmm.
it was loud. I think I came out of it saying that I probably messed it all up or that I forgot a
Yeah,
point or two in which the audience probably didn't even notice.
right.
So overall, and my manager shared with me that it went well. And even before, as I was preparing and over rehearsing, as a lot of women do,
Yeah.
they told me that this was great. And after the fact, to your point, it probably was great. But what I recall is feeling like, oh, I could have done this better or differently, or here's what I would do better next time. So it was more of a
Yeah.
berating myself than anything else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's so many lessons in what you shared, Sohi. And one of those is that, sometimes it's the context that makes us feel like a minority, right? And unable to sort of break through. And sometimes it is us. And what was fascinating about your story is that you recognized that your inner critic was really loud and was, trying to sway you from what would have been a very successful session. And it was, except that it tainted your memory of it because of the fact that your inner critic was, loud.
Yes.
That's such an important learning there.
It so is, and thank you for picking up on that. Even to this day, I have inner critic. Now, the inner critic, which I call my inner gremlin, is a little less louder these days
Yeah.
and quicker to get back to center. However, it still pops up. It's a
Yeah.
lifelong journey.
You've coached so many through your career, right? What's
I
the
have.
most common challenge or issue they come to you with? And could you maybe share a story of a breakthrough a leader had working with you?
Yes. So I think two topics come to mind. So they typically come with I need to learn how to communicate better, and I need
Hmm.
to, the broad umbrella of leadership, which is to
Right.
say, how do I become a better leader?
Mm.
And then when we get under the hood of it, it's how do you find what your leadership style is and
Mm.
then find confidence in that. I can recall one scenario in particular where this person was going through a similar challenge in terms of felt like he wanted to take on more in his role. And he had been at the company for a number of years and wanted to move up and felt like he wasn't seen and he was passed up for role.
Oh,
And I think a lot of people go through this at some point in their lives. And I know I personally have in my career as well, where I felt like I can take on more. And so he came to me with that presenting challenge. And What was really powerful there, Shahana, and I think that this is a tool that most or many coaches use, was that the 360
Mm.
assessment in which we get feedback
Right,
from
right.
peers and his manager and others around him
Yeah,
illuminated really big points of aha for him where he was like, oh, wow,
yeah,
I see the key areas that I need to lean into and do more of. And it's like having a decoder right in front of
yeah,
you, which
yeah.
the coach can really illuminate. Okay, is this a surprise?
Mm,
What were you aware of previously?
mm,
What's, resonating with you in the feedback? And then
yeah,
worked with him to really take some actionable steps so that he can take on more and be seen as that leader that he wanted to be. So that was a huge
yeah.
unlock in that for him, he didn't really understand the power of feedback until it was presented in such a way that
Oh.
it was big themes for him to action on.
Such a great story and so relatable because I think all of us have gone through that at some point in our lives, right? Where there is a tape about us, but we just don't know what it is. And
Right.
it does hold us back. When people are kind enough to give us the feedback, that's when we first realize what we are perhaps inadvertently, right, doing or causing in our environments. So I'd love to hear more about what was the aha you think for the leader. And, is there maybe one that stands out for you? And what was that point of breakthrough?
Yeah, I think it was for him seeing that one, he not only had to think strategically across the company and really
Hmm.
share his thinking, it was really that. It was he thought about the plans and he had it in his head, but it's the ability to really speak on it, advocate for the thoughts,
Right.
and bring his team that he was a part of along with him. And that's not just about, hey, are you a strategic thinker or can you execute? It's
Hmm.
can you then communicate that in a way that brings people along and influences the
Hmm.
ones around you?
Yeah.
So, much of leadership, as you know, Shahana, is all about bringing people along the journey with you. And I think that was a
Yeah.
big aha along with the feedback in and of itself, is to say, oh, wow, I have to influence people to come along with me. And
Yeah.
that communicating and advocating and doing it in such a way that's it's
Yeah.
inspiring.
And was there something that you think was holding him back from doing it in the first place?
Well, I think the unlock was that he thought he was doing it. Right. And these are some of the blockers that I think working with a coach really illuminates, is
Yeah.
getting under the hood of, oh, okay. So tell me what you think it looks like to be
Yeah.
influencing and communicating. And how do we amplify that and or do it in a way that helps others really see?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's such a great story, right? Because sometimes we all get into this mode where there's so much on our plates, right? And we are trying to get through stuff. And it's almost like we are too busy to be effective. We think we are busy and effective, but often we are just too busy to be effective. And
Right.
so, I often talk about coaching as being in city traffic during rush hour, but having a GPS, right?
Ah, I think that's a beautiful analogy, and it's so true.
So in this particular case, I mean, clearly he was, definitely facing a lot of headwinds. And then suddenly it's almost like a path opened up for him with the feedback that he got that his peers were generous enough to give, right?
Yeah.
And through your coaching. So this is such a great story. Thank you for sharing it. So you have to tell us one more story about one more challenge that, women come to you with.
Yes, and this is also a prevailing one, which is advocating for themselves. And
Mhm.
I know that's a term that's thrown around quite often these
Yeah.
days. It can be as big as asking for the promotion, or as simple and as everyday as, okay, please don't interrupt me.
Mm.
So these two examples from two different people. So one client I've worked with for a number of years now, and really helping her again with the confidence piece
Mm.
and giving word to the ask that she wanted to ask for. So
Mm.
The first one being negotiating for her salary and for her worth. So we were able to really get operational with that by helping her list out all of the accomplishments for the year. That act of writing all of the accomplishments allowed her to see, wow, I did a lot.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff that I wasn't even
Yeah.
asked to do. So going above and beyond. That act of writing it down and visually seeing it allowed her to feel more confident. And then we worked to give her the language to ask for the raise. And then the third part of that was allowing her to practice with me in real time, right? What would you say and how would you say it? What's the context? And all of those things that actually are micro actions and tips and strategies that I do
Right.
with my clients in real time. That allowed her to actually feel very comfortable in asking for that, which ultimately she got what she asked for.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's powerful because one, you know this, Johanna, it's like we women, we take the first number.
Yes.
We don't go back and we don't think that it's all negotiable
Yeah.
because everything is negotiable.
Yeah.
And then giving them the language and then the tools to actually lean into that conversation with confidence, that was powerful for her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is such a great story. Such a great story, Sophie. And I certainly relate to it as well. With my coaching clients, I see the same thing,
Yes.
and when you do the first role play of someone, trying to, whether it's ask for a promotion, ask for a salary increase, ask to be considered for a new role, a stretch assignment, an international assignment, whatever it may be,
Yeah.
the first time you see that it's not quite coming together, right? But people think that they can figure it out. They can just, walk into a conversation and it'll work. And it doesn't.
No, it
Because
does.
you really need to have intentionality, you need to think through, you need to prepare, and a coach can really help, as you have done with this leader. So that's such a great story.
Oh, thank you. Well, you're doing the work too as well, and we need all of us doing the work. So
Absolutely.
the other example I wanted to share is around a lot of women experience being cut off or, just shortchanged in the conversation. So it's
Yeah.
with this other woman, allowing them to one, recognize that that was happening to her and allowing her to speak to it, that experience and what it was doing for her and kind of cutting off her confidence, right?
Yeah.
So validating that yes, these things happen, and then giving her language and the tools to stand in her situation to say, please let me finish, or even say something as simple as, I'm not done talking.
Yeah.
And that in and of itself, that phrase can feel scary for a lot of people to even say.
Yeah. You're so right. And these conversations are hard. They are not easy conversations because they're uncomfortable. And I've seen sometimes, women will go into a conversation like this and just blurt it out and sort of run, right?
Yeah.
Because,
Yes.
it's so uncomfortable. You almost don't want to have a conversation. You just want to say your point and get the hell out of there. And that's not how you negotiate. That's not a constructive way of getting what you want or what you deserve. So, thank you for sharing that example. That's such a great story as well.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to what you shared around being intentional and being thoughtful about it.
This podcast is brought to you by Just Human. We offer a broad range of leadership development solutions, including mindful leadership workshops and executive coaching. To learn more, visit us at justhuman.io. And now, back to the podcast. We all have limiting beliefs, and we talked about a few through our conversation just now. I certainly have my share. And it has a hold on us, right? And you really have to work hard to overcome it. Have
Mhm.
you ever had a limiting belief that you've had to overcome? And could you share a story about that?
Oh, geez. I mean, I think this is just an hour or so or less podcast. How many? There have been many instances of limiting beliefs that comes up in different ways. The first real one is around being a leader and getting promoted. And that was about like, well, why not me? And I think that as I saw peers around me getting promoted early on in my career, I had a limiting belief that it wasn't for me, that I wasn't
Mhm.
a leader. And I had to really go inward and ask myself, like, what is my belief around that?
Mhm.
Which ultimately led me to, well, why not me? And then how do I do that? How do I get that as well? And then, in other areas of my life, it's about a limiting belief around, oh gosh, am I going to be a good mom? I don't know. It's scary. I know that I want to do it differently than my parents did. My parents did the best that they could. I want to do it differently, but I was scared. Limiting beliefs around parenthood,
Yeah.
limiting beliefs around entrepreneurship. I don't know if I can do this. Who leaves a really great job and a great title? It's scary. It's not safe. And gosh, the body felt it too. So the mind beliefs as well as the body felt it. And most recently, Shahana, it's around, I feel a transition in my career. What is that? What are my limiting beliefs about what's next for me? All of these things that are actually current. So I'm grappling with it now. But I'll share another one where, I was on the TEDx stage and good God, was the limiting belief really loud.
Mm.
It was around, I don't deserve to be on this stage. Everyone else that's speaking, their story is far more compelling and far more, interesting than mine.
Mm.
And I had to work in real time, like even before going onto the stage to give my talk, to really rewire my beliefs and what I was saying to myself in the moment to actually show up and share my story. I mean, it's anytime I put myself out there into a new situation that I feel is important, there is some sort of a limiting belief that comes up. And I think that's real for most of us that put ourselves
Yeah.
out there.
How did you get yourself on the TEDx stage?
It's one of those things where going back to the top of the hour, the people that help you. So I have an amazing business coach that I meet with regularly who I called and I said, look, I'm having all of these doubts. Please, work with me so that I can anchor into my confidence to get out on the stage. So she happened to be reachable and available. And I think it's one, knowing who you need to call in for
Right.
support. And also, I meditated. I'm a big meditator. Like I needed to quiet the noise, and meditation helps me do that. So it was a combination of those things, and then working really hard on the micro action. Okay, my story is just as good. I'm going to get out on the stage. I'm going to breathe, and I'm just going to share my story as authentically as I can. It's all of those things that help me
Yeah.
actually stand there and complete it.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Great story. You've obviously helped so many women leaders through their limiting beliefs as well. Is there
Mhm.
a particular story that comes to mind of a leader and their breakthrough?
Another very senior C-suite senior woman, the limiting belief that she had around being the leader to that division, being
Hmm.
the president. And, she obviously was sure of herself in terms of, earning that title and earning the seat and earning the C-suite spot. It was really helping her realize that who she is as a leader was enough, and that to meet the company where it's at, she needed to just add a few more toolkits to her toolbox to really amplify and lean into that leadership position that was really new for her.
And was there a particular saboteur? You talk about saboteur in your books. Was there a particular one that was impacting her?
It was around the limiting belief of, of being out there. Like as when you're at the top of the house, so to speak, there is a part of that role that requires you to be more visible
Right.
and more communicative in a different way.
Mm.
So I think it definitely was around working with her around that limiting belief about that's not who she is. That's not her comfort spot. That's not what she does. And really helping her rewire that story and that narrative so that she felt more comfortable in doing that
Hmm.
and more regularly because the company was going through such a transition and there was a need to improve morale.
Let's talk a bit more about leadership.
Yes.
You know, when you look back through your career, right, who's the best leader you've ever worked with, and what do you remember most about them?
Oh, it's such an unfair question. I've had so many great leaders. I'm going to take the liberty of naming three because they were different.
Mhm.
And early on in my career, when I was in banking and mortgage services, I had a phenomenal leader. She saw in me my leadership potential. She promoted me twice when I was an individual contributor and really struggling to understand the role, and the industry was new to me. So I
Yeah.
felt like I was just like not excelling at all.
Mm.
And, through different experiences and gaining my sea legs, she promoted me into, executive roles because she had a belief in me. And I had to really step up to that. I was
Mm.
sitting at the seat with presidents and doing a lot of high visibility strategy work that
Yeah.
at the age of like 28, 29, 30,
Yeah.
that's a lot for someone that age and to lead a team and to have that opportunity. So I wanted to really not only prove it to myself, but also show her that she made the right choice as
Yeah.
well. So she believed in me early on. So I thank her for that. And when I went to entertainment, this boss, I still keep in touch with him. He was really pivotal in my career.
Mm.
And what I mean by that is I've had my own share of managers that micromanaged me. So I know what that
Right.
is like, which is why I'm like, okay, let's learn how to not do that. Um, so I've had those experiences, and this manager in particular, he not only trusted me, he gave me the freedom to do the work in the way that I thought would be best for the client.
Mm.
And that was so life-changing in the sense that, okay, I can actually trust myself. I actually know what I'm saying and doing. And
Wow.
it gave me another level of confidence
Mm.
because he trusted me.
Yeah.
That allowed me to trust myself. And
Amazing.
in addition to that, he also gave me access. So what I mean
Mhm.
by that, and this is so key that leaders do this, is that he
Mm.
brought me along to the meetings with the presidents.
Yeah.
So, yes, was I the only one that looked like me? Oftentimes, yeah. However, it gave me access to relationships and people in the organization that allowed me to be more effective and to get more done. So, giving me access. And he also allowed me to shadow him in his work. So,
Wow.
as he was facilitating, he invited me in. He asked this question. He said, how do you learn best? Would you like me to just tell you, or do you want to see it in action? I mean, that is just a brilliant leader, right? He
Yes.
asked me these questions before I even knew what would be.
Yeah.
And it made me think. And I said, you know what? I learn best by watching. So he would let me sit in the back of the room and watch how he
Oh
facilitated.
my God, that's amazing.
Phenomenal. I mean, he was just life-changing for me. And which is why Mark was so critical to my growth. I'm forever just like grateful for his influence in my life.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And you said three. So who's
Yes.
the third?
Gosh. Oh gosh. The third person is also kind of around the same time. I was in entertainment. I went to Warner Brothers twice. So I left and then they brought me back. And it was the second time in which this leader showed me what it was like to be a really amazing female leader with a family.
Ah, okay.
She showed me a way that I was like, wow, it can be done. And it just really helped open my eyes to what was possible.
Right.
And she was so smart. And yeah, she's obviously still she's smart and such a dynamic leader and very charismatic. Also had that warmth to her. And it was just a combination of things that I just so admired and allowed me to see what else was possible.
Yeah. Oh my God, such great stories, all three of them.
Yeah.
I definitely have an ulterior motive in asking you this question.
What?
Um, In our work on mindful leadership, right, we have been grappling with the question, what makes a leader take a chance on you when you haven't earned it yet? What makes a leader trust you, right, when you haven't earned their trust yet? Even at personal cost to themselves sometimes. And,
Mm.
as we have sort of dug into it, research is my favorite rabbit hole. I can live in there forever.
No, I love it.
So, all of the research and, looking back at the training programs that I've gone to, training programs I've created, the books I've read, leadership follows a template, right? You look at these very famous celebrity CEOs, and then you dissect what are their competencies that supposedly have made them successful. Then
Mm.
you figure out what are the best practices that will help you, build those competencies. And there you have it. You're a leader. That's not how it works because no amount of risk taking competency can make you take actual risk on somebody at personal cost to yourself.
Mhm.
That comes from deep within. You talk about the inner game and the inner work that a leader needs to do. And
Mhm.
that's where we landed as well. So, mindful leadership for us is much more about being able to connect who you are deep inside to how you lead. And then how do you translate, right? Or how do you convert your sort of purpose into everyday actions that help your teams and businesses thrive? And
Mhm.
it's exactly, and when you look at people, right, we have sort of seen that in our listening labs as well. You talked about it as well. Is that what remains with you is the leader who took a chance on you. It's not the leader who had regular one on ones with you, right? It's that's kind of, where I'm going with this. No amount of best practices makes you a great leader.
Yeah.
Whereas doing that inner work is actually what makes you a great leader.
Yes, I love that you are sharing them.
And in organizations, we tend to over index on competencies, on best practices, and we forget to ask, why are you becoming a leader in the first place?
Oh,
Right?
I love that.
What is the impact you want to have? Right? How do you want to change things? So I think there's so much more that we need to do in organizations that we don't do today. But thank you for sharing those stories. They're amazing. Oh my God, I could talk to you all day.
Oh my gosh, I know.
What I've tried to do is to crunch some questions into a rapid fire section for you, Sohee. So, are you ready?
I'm ready. I'm ready.
What is one thing most people don't know about you?
Oh, I think I shared up front. I wanted to be Connie Chung when I was little. And the second thing I would say, I am a true introvert.
Oh, fellow introvert. Oh
Yeah.
my God. Two introverts on a podcast. That's an interesting title somewhere.
I know. I think that should be two introverts on a podcast. I love it.
Two vocal introverts on a podcast. Let's put it that way.
Yes, that's right.
What's a book that's been life changing for you?
Oh, wow. So many. I'm a voracious reader. One that I go back to time and again is by Tara Moore called Playing Big. And I loved how she put language to the experiences that women were having around shrinking and, running away from what they truly wanted.
Hmm.
And then the other book that I read more recently is by Elise Lohman, and it's called On Our Best Behavior. And it's a societal, anthropological, it's a spiritual look at the ways women, the price we pay to be good, in
Hmm.
essence. I'm doing it a disservice by the way
Interesting.
that I'm summarizing it, but it's fascinating. Yeah, I loved it.
Oh, that's amazing. If you could send a message to little Sohee at 6 in school, right?
Mhm.
What would you say?
I've been thinking about this a lot lately. I would tell little Sohee that she already has everything she needs.
Ah, wonderful.
Yeah.
Beautifully said. What's one thing you've learned about yourself that surprised you on this journey?
Ooh. Mm. I don't think this is a surprise. It's been a reinforcement of just how much I love, like how resilient I am, I think, in this journey of life. Just whatever situation I'm in, I'm able to somehow thrive in it in my own way. And I think that that's been both lovely and challenging and maddening and also very rewarding, all of the above.
What's one piece of advice from your latest bestseller, Aligned Mindset, that you'd like to share with our listeners today?
Here's the thing. So the book, I love it for all the wisdom in there. If nothing else, I want the reader to take away that they are not alone in their challenge. And if they're to do anything, it's to take the next best micro action.
Mm,
Anytime we want to do anything, people go big in wanting whatever change it is. And so really just anchor on the next best micro action and then go
yeah.
from
The power of the first step. I love it. I
there.
love it. What is one step forward that you'd ask everyone to try as our mindful leadership challenge of the month?
Mm, give yourself permission,
Mm,
whether that's permission to want to ask for a day off, whether that's permission to want to take on the leadership role, give yourself permission.
aw, that's amazing. Beautifully said.
Thank you.
So much wisdom, so many great stories, and so much fun. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much, Sohee, for
This,
joining us and sharing your wisdom with our listeners today.
oh gosh, this has been delightful. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. We'd love to hear from you. Please rate, review, and subscribe to the Mindful Leadership Podcast brought to you by Just Human. We are a growth accelerator for our clients, helping your people and businesses thrive through human centered, ecosystem based people solutions. To learn more, visit us at justhuman.io and schedule a 30-minute free call with us.